So, dili na punta, proceed na punta sa chapter 2. So, ang chapter 2, nag-cover sa siya sa History of Forensic Document Examination. So, kung may history, sa unang mga kuan nila sa kuan. So, gikan sa karaan, hantod nga nagka-evolve siya sa new, nila. So, learning objectives of this chapter, at the end of this chapter, the student will be able to narrate the history of writing and forgery, enumerate the important events in the USA involving the pioneers of document examination, and cite historical cases on the development of question document examination. So, ito sa nakakabasa.
So, history of writing. Writings are letters or symbol that are written or imprinted on a surface of represent the sounds of words of the language. It consists of messages that convey idea of others. Its evolution is based on man's desire to communicate his truth with others. So, kibali, ang history of writing kay nagkuha na siya nagbase na siya isa katao na kung sa siya magsuyat or deliver of words gani.
So sa kuan history of writings, so sa atong madumduman suyat gyud ang sauna, di ba? Wa pa man tay technologies na ginagamit pag mag-communicate ka na based on man's desire to communicate his thoughts with others. So for example, na kay gusto ipaabot sa pikas barangay. So magsuwat kag letters nga mag-write ka og mga letters para imong message para imo siya ipadaya didto. Nga may basehan nimo ang ilang responsive is through writing sab kay lagi sa una wala pa tay mga technologies na gagawa pa dili pa high tech. Oo.
Nagamit sila ng mga hayop gali.
Oo, sa una sa. Pero sa ato diri ay writings pa siya writing. So writings are letters or symbols that are written or imprinted. So, sabta man ba writings, pag magsuyat tao ka ng mga letters, writings na ang tawag na sa ija. So, if you look at the early history of every culture, you would probably find that its primitive people had an oral language and an early stage of writing. They probably devised some sort of means to communicate with others through visible signs that could be understood by others. Example of such early writings include the records that were engraved into stone, carved in wood, pressed into plate, tablets, and marked on animal skin. So sa una dyan siya, mga history dyan siya. Visible sign, pag yung tag-visible sign, makita dyan siya, mga writings siya. So ato.
Ginabutang sa kuan,
Oo.
sa kahoy, sa bato, so na ginakuha nila.
Pili niya.
Sa mga dagko nga bato pud gani. Kita kabudon ka na sa kuan bod sa doon ka tong sa Ice Age diri, di ba? Doon ka na Ice Age, di ba? Sa mga bato sa kilid-kilid na
Ano sila magbinin ng mga
diya
message
sila yung bilig message kung sa history nila nagihan ba nga. Di ba makita din mo to sa Ice Age murag mga bato-bato. Tapos kining ang history nila murag ilagi carve.
Oo.
Kaya may ilan ba kung usay lagi agihan ba, di ba? Kung
Ilang gi-engrave dito sa sa bato.
So, cave drawings are, of course, the most familiar of early writings. They are the first recorded record of prehistoric people.
cave drawings.
Cave drawings are called petroglyphs or petrograms, and they developed between 20,000 and 10,000 BC. These paintings gradually developed into wordless pictures or ideographs which were used by Sumerians,
Sa mga kwalis siya, mga
Cave drawings.
Chinese, Aztecs, Mayas, and Egyptians. Egyptian words pictures are called hieroglyphics.
Oh, hero.
So kabantay mo itong
Hieroglyphics.
sa pyramid itong naka-outfit dito. Dili mabasa gani.
Ito nung bod.
Mga historic
Arang ka ano,
mga historic na word ba na?
Historic words nila.
Kung sa akong pagsabot na yun sa nila to magkuhan.
Lain nilang, baliwa pa magod sila burag alphabet sa unang nga kuan. Murag lain ang ilang murag lain gan ilang form sa message nila.
Hindi ka masabtan. Hindi kang
Mga cave. So, mga tayo cave drawings. Next.
Sorry.
O, tama na sa diri sa ano.
So tagrik na. Drag.
Definition of alphabet.
The Phoenician alphabet which was used and spread by Phoenicians throughout the word between 1700 and
1,500.
1500 BC consisted of 20 letters and was written from right to left. Right to left, the Phoenician alphabet was assimilated by many other cultures and become religious. So, balik.
Kibali.
Mao na
Totoo.
Mo nilang gamit sa kwan sa una.
Sa una, from right to left, kibali.
Dirito ano.
Right.
Murag sa Chinese,
Sige,
murag
ah.
sa Chinese.
Sige.
O di ba sa makakita ko sa mga Korean mga salita or
Ang sa Korea,
Malay
sa,
ka na.
sa ubos man,
Or
sa ubos pataas ang sa Korea, sa
Oh,
Chinese
dira ana sila
takilid.
ana.
Sa,
Oo, sa
Ay mo?
sa
Chinese.
ang sa Korean pa ubos, sa high pa ubos.
Paubos,
Sa
pataas.
Sa Chinese pa sa kilid sa
too?
Sa too. Sa too magkuan dos pa wala.
Ah. So,
Sandi
mao
sa ato
din
kay ang ato sa
Ay,
kay.
nasa unang mga
Waya mga
kuwan.
ato gadun.
Oh, waya man.
So ang ilang alphabet sa una na consist siya og 22 letters
Mhm.
sa mga to. Assimilated by minute. So dapat ay diri this word pictures develop into symbols which were then used to represent sounds or syllables called phonographs. This then developed into simplified phonetic symbols called the phonetic alphabet. An alphabet of characters intended to represent a specific sound of speech. The Sumerians are generally credited mo ni the first alphabet mo ni sila mato katong nagidiscuss ni ni Luca na katong Phoenician alphabet was used to trade with the Phoenicians throughout the world and consisted na siya of 22 letters.
Basta
So, Phoenician alphabet. First alphabet na nakuan.
Pero ginagamit na sa una pa na napanahon
Sa una, sa una.
tanan ba na gamit or dili? You know, or
Maybe
dili?
kay history man siya. So,
Base.
sa mga sa una na mo lang gamit. So,
Kay
comment siya kay sa una man nilang gamit. So, mo ni sa general.
Katanang
Pero
Yeah.
ya lang na kuan guro sa iban kay ya manggod na kita pud wa na kita sa iban. Kay
Oo.
kay sa ila ra man na picture ni na kuan sila nagagamit. Mo ni nakabutang sa story.
Next.
The Greek alphabet was derived from the
Phoenician alphabet.
Phoenician alphabet and has been used by Greeks since 18th century BC. The word alphabet stems from the 2 to 20 letters of Greek alphabet alpha and beta. Their alphabet consisted of 22 letters and included vowels. The Greek changed handwriting direction from left to right. So mauna guro
Oh, dili ni mo na ning ato dili.
Wala.
26 naman nato karon 26. Ang kanibal sa Greek gyapon ni siya nga
Pero ang
Greek
ato,
alphabet.
ang ato
Kapalayan,
lamang
guro?
sa Greek ang ato kanang pagsuwat sa left to right. Pero ang letters na bumurag
Siguro burag mo na nila dos karon na dugang-dugang na lamang. History guys, di ba burag nagkaanam nga si Jack Edward. Nagkaanam si Jack kuan. Sa una kuan si Jack Phoenician sa Greek alphabet tas ano niya nagkuan si Jack. So mao to si Jack ang katong history of writing or history of katong gipanggamit nila nga mga words or pag-create nila ng isa ka letters or symbols through communication nga ilang gamit sa una. So dire na sabta sa history of forgery. So basta
Practice of forgery or the falsification and alteration of writing with the intent to defraud is as old as writing itself. The value forgery has been practiced since ancient times where writing existed. These are important events in the history of forgery.
So, the practice of forgery, kibali, pag may tag forgery, na si Jai intent to defraud. Kibali, burag, na siya intention nga mangatik jud ba? Kay nag-ija mang i-forge ang isa ka document. So, natin mga history diri, gikan sa 80 BC, Romans prohibited the falsification of documents that transferred land to heirs. Kanang mga, kibali, sa tawag na, may natag ka ng mga pamana gani pamana nila sa ilang kitay ako na ko'y bata so akong ipamana sa ija so ang gibuhat nila sa una is falsification of documents giprohibited na siya sa Romans ang falsification of documents sa 80 BC na siya sa Middle Ages forgery became prevalent in Europe so nakuha siya sa Middle Ages. In 1562, England passed a statute prohibiting forgery of publicly recorded and officially sealed documents, especially those pertaining to titles of land. So, importante jud ang mga titles of land, no? Kay, kana jud kasagaran ang gina-forge sa una siguro kay, kana ganing dapat ija na ang lupa. pero ang ibutan dito kita ay dapat square kita nga na pila ka kilometers ang iyang lupa.
Pero, imo
Pero
kay-
ang ibutan dito ana ra day 1/4 ra sa whole niya nga
Bali,
lupa.
nimo kan na isa ka hektarya.
Mm.
Ang nahitabo kay 1/4 ra.
Gani o ginakuha nila sa gina-forge nila ang documents sa titles of land para mailang
Para mailang.
intention din nila nga kuan. In 1726, false endorsement on an unsealed private document became a crime punishable by pillory, fines, imprisonment, and even death. Unsealed private documents. So, kaya di ba karon na iba na itong mga documents nga naka-kuha siya kasuyin sa envelope tapos naputangan pa dyan nila og kanang kuan. Do not use if, for example so mag-focus on sa document ay kanang kuan pero dili nimo i-accept if kanang nanay mga gisi nga na guys something nga na kay possible pag if katong naka-sealed si Ja if unsealed bang gusto si Ja na possibility na makuha si Ja ma-forge kibali burag tay isuyod lang nimo sa envelope pero wa niyo mo jud ka gi-tape gi-kuan nga na or gibutangan og kanang kuan nga ilhanan nga pagwas na magisito kitang giabli nila ni pero pag waya nila okay ra na kanang burag safety ang document nga sa ilayom pero pag unsealed si Ja pwede ra si Ja burag free si Ja nga i-forge free si Ja nga i-change kung saan dito sa isa ka document kay dili mas dyan naka-sealed nga documents so mo na ilang ikuan became a crime punishable by penalty, fines, imprisonment and even death sa 1726. In 1819, England issued and bound bills inscribed on ordinary white paper with a simple pen and ink, resulting in massive forgeries and the arrest of 94,000 people, 7,700 of which were sentenced to death. Grabe no? 1 pound of bills.
Ibalin sa manay kayo ng mga 1 pound of bill sa mga kan.
Once siguro ni kanang inscribe on ordinary white paper with a simple pen. Kibali barag kanang mga kwarta ba nga kuan gani? Gina-forge lang. Fake na kwarta sa una. Ilang gikuan na.
Grabe ang na-arrest no?
Oh,
24,000.
kamok nila no. Kayo kay ila na daw ordinary white paper with a simple pen and ink. Ibali burag sa una sa genre sa kopyahon ang kwarta. Manang sa wa mo ka bantay sa ato karon nga burag ila na ganing hanapag way nga murag makikuha ng gid nga og forge pa siya or dili. Murag ila nang kon mga lisod na jud sundugon ang kwarta. Kay sa una man gud dali ra sundugon ang kwarta. Tawa o papel na ilang gamit og pen and simple pen and ink lang.
Gani namo kay kalimot ko ani ba sa mag-try gani mo og kining kan, mag-try mo og pag-xerox og kining kwarta tanawa mo itong gud na sila. Kay namo ko ikaw na kanang isa ka. Naigibutang ana ba nga di gid sa makapy bitaw dun sa photocopy nimo di sa mo automatic nga nang
Huwag
mag-copy
na
ng
sila
color.
ibutang nila nga kuan ba.
Nga dili makapy ba? Oo.
Para sa lang bago ka ka ng polymer. Kanang 1,000 nga pag di ba? Lisod na siya. Kaya ang papel ni Jia murag abot di na nimo siya
So kung pan kay magreklamo kay kuan ko no, kagana lang no kay dili na mo ano.
Di na siya
Tapos di
makuha.
siya mabasa.
So in 18
Oh,
So in 1823, the United States enacted the principal federal forgery statute that prohibited false making, forgery, or the alteration of the any writing for the purpose of obtaining financial gain. So more nga siya mga forge sa financial gain, mga i-alter nimo isa ka document para kuan ba brag himuuna nila nga business gani. Kaya na. In 1962, the American Law Institute Model Penal Code simplified and defined the elements of forgery and became the standard for defining the crime of forgery. So, nahimong ng crime ang isa ka forgery. So, ako na mag-continue sa expert witnesses and pioneers of document examination. In 539 AD in Rome, the Justinian Code permitted judges to appoint experts to give testimony in court regarding the genuineness of a writing based on a comparison with other admitted genuine writings. So, ato nga sa kanya di ba nga ang makuan mo ang isa ka genuine documents through sa pag-examine sa ilang i-compare nimo ang standard na o katong question na documents if same lang ba sila. The English followed the Justinian Code but only allowed witnesses to testify regarding the authenticity of signatures if they had knowledge of or had seen the disputed signature written. Experts were allowed to make comparison in non-jury trials, but handwriting samples that were not part of the case were not allowed to be used for the comparison of handwriting by the witnesses. So this prohibition against standards of comparison in court cases hampered identification. The English Parliament changed this practice in 1854 by allowing the introduction of genuine writing that was not part of the court case for the purpose of comparing. So, mara man siya nga kuan, basta kay katong mga nadiriya ang mga witnesses nga mo testify regarding sa authenticity of signatures if they have knowledge of disputed signature with that. So, for example, ako kabayo ko sa imong signature. So, sa isang ka-document ko, bro, na-question ang imong signature gani. Tapos pwede sila makakuag witness nga kuan, na di ba nga ni Ija, dapat mo ingana na kaya iya mode, kaya ingana ra, ingana. Pura gani, imo gani explain dito kay kabayo na, bro, close mo ba kabayo na ko sa ijang pinirma ka na. Manila, bro, ilang i-compare ang isa ka, sige. So, dito sa the United States of America based their laws on the English common law and permitted the comparisons in court cases. Below are important events in the history of document examination in the USA. So, history ni sa document examination sa USA. In 1812, the earliest record of expert comparison testimony in America was Ain Salve v. Dawson, where a signature on a promissory note was proved genuine. However, handwriting identification did not become popular until much later in the 19th century. So, wala pa kayo kuan sa during the 1812 in the USA, pero dili pa kayo kuan ang handwriting identification gani. So, ang promissory note nga ginakuan sa during sa 1812 na prove as was siya kanang authentic siya nga promissory note. Pero sa gingon na diri dili pa kung ingon nga popular ang pag kuan sa handwriting identification, pero dili pa kung strictly implemented gani ang handwriting identification. So, in 1814, in Homer v. Wallis, 11 Mass. 309, the court permitted the submission of writings and the evidence of witnesses on the comparison of disputed writing. So, kato sa mga ingon.
Sa
Ito.
Ginoo.
So, mo lang, well, sa Justinian Code, which is dili pa allow ang kuan dali ang signature na mahimong evidence. So, well done. 1814, pwede na siya
Kuha na siya ang writing submission of writing evidence para kuha na siya. Ginagamit na sa court during sa 1814.
1814.
In 1914, Congress enacted the Statute of 1913, which accepted such comparison to be used as competent evidence in court to prove or disprove the genuineness of a person's handwriting. So, sabdan man, di ba? Sa 1914, nakuha na sa USA is kuha na competent na ang paggamit sa handwriting comparison as evidence in court. No? So, to prove or disprove the genuineness. If that person's handwriting is genuine ba or kuan lang, kanang forged ba. In 1867, the first significant forgery case was tried in Massachusetts, involving the traced signatures of Sylvia Ann Holland of New Bedford. The most significant testimony came from Dr. Benjamin Pease, a mathematician from Harvard, who testified on the mathematical probability of identical strokes being made in two different signatures. He claimed that the likelihood of 30 strokes occurring in two separate signatures could occur only once in napatay na ni. Pila naman ni. His methodology was subsequently proved to be inaccurate. So, di ba grabe din ko Andrea kanang ilang mathematician nga kuan 30 strokes. So pag tag strokes di ba kanang atong pag magsulat tag letters kanang atong ginakuan. So grabe na identify niya ang 30 strokes daw is lahi siya sa kuan. Isa ka authentic document. Pero wala nagka-compare.
I-compare nila.
Oo. So dito niya nakuan nga methodology was proven to be pero inaccurate namang iyang pagkakuan ng testified niya sa manis siya basta sa during sa 1867 sa question document examination dahil in the USA. In 1894, handwriting identification became sufficiently well known that two New York experts published the books on the subject. William E. Hagan published this disputed handwriting, and Percy Fraser published a manual for the study of documents. So nakuha na siya murag na well known na ang handwriting identification sa 1894. Kasama to. In 1900s, Daniel A. Ames wrote Ames on Forgery, one of the first book of document examination. Around this time, handwriting experts, who were mostly calligraphers, began to testify in court as expert witness. Calligraphy, di ba, is good writing. Sa nakadumdum. Chacography, bad writing. So, mga calligraphers, mga expert yun na sila. Expert witnesses, at the same time, expert writers na sila nga. Kung sila ba? Sa pag-make nila ng mga expert with, as an expert, kung sila, examiners or witnesses, kung sila muhimo ng report. Kaya syempre, dapat yung mabasa ng imong gipang ng report, di lang kung pankaw. In 1902, Albert T. Patrick, ay napaday si Kuan day 1900s. Ronald B. Molyneux was convicted for first-degree murder. Dari na nag-start ang kanila. Molyneux made a bottle labeled Emerson Bromo Seltzer but had powder containing cyanide of mercury. Cyanide, I mean. It was ingested by an innocent victim who died by poisoning, the Landmark case. So, giforge ni Jang isa ka kuan, for example, product. Diyan giforge siya isa ka product. Biskay kuan si Ja, biskay nag-contain to si Jag cyanide of mercury, iyang kuan dito, iyang gibayloan dito, iyang ginibelan og Emerson's Bromo Seltzer. Kasama si Ja. Basta kay itong i-discuss na ni Bari kung sa nito. So, nakuha noon sa victim, bro, na
Nagapatay nung sa gana.
oo, kaya nakuha man sa victim. Nakuha man. Kaya kalaw man nagito o kuhan si Jack. Iya magilibelan o Emerson sa Bromo sa siguro pagkaon ni or ano nun. Pero kuhan dito, nag-contain dito si Jack og cyanide of mercury. In 1902, Albert T. Patrick was convicted for conspiring to murder his millionaire client. Nag-conspire si Jack. So, conspiracy, diba bro? Nasa lagi kuhan ba?
Sabutan.
Sabutan, oo. Client William Marsh Rice. The Rice will case required handwriting system to prove that Patrick forged Rice's name on several checks and a will after he had murdered Rice. Albert Osborne testified in this case to the fact that the checks and will were traced forgeries. He was allowed to use photographs and transparent paper to show that the 4 question signatures were identical. So, ang mga check ni William o yung mga will i-forge si nila Albert Patrick para maila balik. So in 1904, John H. Wigmore wrote The Law of Evidence, which revolutionized the legal profession regarding expert testimony. So in 1910, Albert Osborne published his seminal book, Question Documents, the first comprehensive book of the subject and was considered as the Bible of document examination. The principles of handwriting identification that he described are still the basis for the comparison of handwriting today. In 1930, the first scientific police laboratory was established. In 1932, the Federal Bureau of Investigation opened their laboratory with 1 document examiner. So, sa USA ni si Jaha nga history.
History, no?
Oh, grabe sa nagka-evolve si Jaha kon. Karon na sila Federal Bureau of Investigation para mag-op na sila laboratory with 1 document examiner. So, history cases of 20th century. So, I'm discussing that.
Hindi ba sana
Forensic document examination developed as an organized discipline throughout the 20th century, particularly in the USA. One milestone is the publication of Albert P. Osborne question document in 1910, which is now considered the beginning of modern question document examination. The continues to be recognized as an authoritative resource in the examination of handwriting and other traditional documents. Osborne determination to advance the subject with that in the publication of books and appearance in court trials and expert tests. He also founded the American Society of Question Document Examination in 1942, milestone Savage and Clark 1966.
below or some
Below are some historical cases that involve question document and contributed to the advancement of forensic document examination as a discipline in the 20th century.
so kining
Mga mga cases na.
cases na ni
sila. So, another forensic document examination developed as an organized discipline throughout the 20th century, particularly in the USA. So, discipline kay lagi gusto pong i-tolerate ang mga forged na documents, di ba? Ang victim gani luoy kay syempre dapat ila to pero gi-forge man. So, hindi na to na ila kay gi-forge lagi ang isa ka document. gyangkon bali sa dili niya. So natay mga cases, historical cases that evolved question documents and contributed to the advancement of forensic document examination as a discipline. So kuan si no kani nga mga cases na kuan ba ni si Jackie bali naka-contribute gyapon ni si nga mga cases sa pag-advance sa forensic document examination para ila jud ikuan strictly jud nila ipakuan ang isa ka or ila jud i-thorough gani ang pagkuan ilang jud seryosohon ang pag-examine sa mga document.
Basa na to.
So number 1 sa kuan sa Dreyfus ato ring basahon ning ilang mga cases at least kuan po siya amazing po siya nga mga cases
Basa na to, sige.
sa una man nila.
Number 1, the
So-
Dreyfus Affair in 1894. Handwriting identification played a major role in the Dreyfus Affair, a political scandal in France that began in 1894. Captain Alfred Dreyfus, French general staff officer, was accused of treason by court martial and sentenced to life imprisonment for allegedly communicating French military secrets to Germans. Pilstone, Savage, and Clark, 2006. The question document was one-page handwritten document listing secret French army documents discovered by a French spy in the German embassy. The main evidence against him was the testimony of highly esteemed Alphonse Bertillon, who is recognized the father of forensic criminal identification of criminals because of his research in anthropometry. So dito naklaimtan si Alphonse Bertillon sila ang father of forensic criminal identification. Tungkol sa yung research na about sa anthropometry. Ang anthropometry is the first scientific system used by the police to identify criminals. Ano ba karong ginagamit ba ni?
Anthropometry sa kuan mo na brog diba nakadundom mo sa atong kamamagi sa una ato ganing kang William and Wills nga case
Magigsoon
o
lagi.
magsuon sila tibali brog nakuan ang kanang Bertillon system na kuan tungod kay bali parihara magud sila murag na-accuse gani ang isa maski kambal man to sila.
Yes, pero na
kaya dapat
sila unique na identification sila duha. Press sa fingerprint, di mo niya pwedeng pareha
di kay sila
sila.
po.
Fingerprint na gyapon.
Gibali burag nakuha ang Bertillon system diba is gi-measure ang mga kanang mga kuan ibukog kanang basta nga na mara ilang kuan sa basihan. Pero burag nakuan siya na burag ning kuan ang Bertillon system tungod lagi atong nga case kay biskay dapat sa katong kuan ang isa man ang naghimo sa kanang crime, ang isa ang nakuha kay parihara man sila. Unless matong
ito lagi kambal is
oo,
pareha sa tanan.
parehas ra pero ang fingerprint niya is like man dito nakuan burag nakuan ang Bertillon system dito ni
Murag na,
Alfonso
murag dibali, murag na.
ning kuan si Jack kay palagi burag wa na prove pa
Against sila na
wala na prove si Jack kay tungod lagi ato nga case.
Continue ta. Bertillon had no training or true expertise in handwriting identification. But his testimony that incriminating document had been written by Dreyfus was sufficient to result in conviction.
Explain niyo man ko ano Dreyfus Affair.
In 1898, it was discovered that much of the evidence used against Dreyfus had been forged by another army
Sige ra
officer.
ka dagan.
The High Court of Appeals ordered a new court martial, but Dreyfus was again convicted. This aroused anger worldwide with the miscarriage of justice, and many were convinced that the military court was simply unable to admit error. Dreyfus was eventually issued a pardon by the President of the Republic and was fully exonerated by the Court of Appeals in 1906. He was reinstated into the army with the rank of major and awarded the Legion of Honor. All the accusations against him were confirmed to be baseless when the original incriminating Christian document was released in 1931. Bertillon was embarrassed by his flagrant error and affair cast a dark and cloud over the remainder of his career. So nakuha nga dito si Condre, no? Si Bertillon, no?
So kaning usa man ning Dreyfus Affair usa may yung contribution sa question documents na kuan. Bali yung sa may yung kuan as question documents ba. Kaya nag-focus man ta diri sa historical cases that involve question documents. unsa man nga kuan ang kaning bali ang documents niya is na
Wag siya ining una.
Reason man, kibali
The evidence used against ang evidence na gigamit kang Dreyfus has been forged na po sa another no army officer.
okay.
Dario.
Sige. Pato. Okay na to sa Dreyfus Affair in 1894. Next. Sabtan na tanan kung saan kuan dito point.
So, yung tagapag na kuwan.
Oo. Anong na-appeal siya sa historical case sa kuan. Na-involve sa question documents. So number 2 is the Bobby Franks kidnap and murder in 1924. Ako sa ka na ni. Kamo lang yun. Ito sa
Basta
3,
lupa.
4, that's right. Ako lang sa 2.
There you go.
So the Bobby Franks kidnap and murder in 1924. Another case that advanced the discipline of question document examination was the kidnap and murder of Bobby Franks in the affluent suburb of Kenwood near Chicago in 1924. Bobby Franks, the son of a millionaire in Chicago, was picked up in a car on his way home from high school and murdered on May 21, 1924. Since he did not return home by dinner time that day, his parents started a search, thinking he may have been with a friend. However, they received a phone call that Bobby had been kidnapped and a typewriter note demanding ransom the next morning. Typewritten, so one lang, coded. They notified the police, but while considering the response to the kidnappers' demands, a dead body was found a little distance away and was identified as Bobby's.
So patay na si Bobby.
So, gipatay na nila si kibaliwa na nila gikidnap. Pagtawag nila, ito sa kidnap, pero wala sa ilang kamot si Bobby.
Pero
Bali, patay na.
nangaya pa sila.
Nangaya pa sila ransom.
Nagimos na ransom para makayos sa kwarta.
Oo. Eventually, suspicion centered on two wealthy and well-educated young men, Richard Loeb and Nathan Leopold, who desired to commit the perfect crime. They spent months planning the murder, the disposal of the body, and the method of receiving ransom money with little or no risk of being caught. Cupid and Loeb had alibis that appeared strong, and the defense was represented by the legendary Clarence Darrow. Leopold owned a typewriter, but it was excluded as the source of the ransom note. So, katong typewriter nga gi-own ni Leopold, ba't nagigamit para maka-create sila og isa ka ransom note para mo ilang gata ito. By chance, police discovered that he used the typewriter of his study group in law school.
Lahi lagi ning mga ibuya sa mga balod di amo ning kusog magkuan.
Pages of notes used in this typewriter were compared to the ransom demand and demonstrated to be identical. So, same ang katong note gani ransom note o katong own niya
Itong naman tong gilaw ni sir. Sa bangkay itong nangayog gyapon sila og kwarta bisan ng katong kuan, ang lawas is patay na gyapon lubong lagi siguro ng
Oo,
pero
katong-
sa pangayo.
ay katong diha sa ano, basta katong ang case
Dali na case ba?
Katong
Gilaw.
case na way andog karon way.
Ang karon niya gyapon. Murag ibog history ato.
Oh. Leopold and Loeb were tried and convicted for the murder and kidnapping of Bobby Franks. The trial became a media spectacle, and the crime was presented as a cold-blooded intellectual exercise pursued by two privileged youths who were driven by a trail of Indians. So, mga youth pa man sila, Leopold, kaya nag-squila pa kaya sila.
So
Sila pero
na
nahimo
comment
nila,
na sila kuan.
The case is significant in the field of forensic document examination because it established the acceptability of typewriter examination as evidence.
So
Mali na contribute ni Jack. Kani nga case is naka-contribute nila tungod sa typewriter nga gigamit nila sa pag-create nila ng ransom note. Nag-call mas Jack, diba? Nahimo mo siyang identical man siya sa katong ransom note o katong typewriter examination nga gihimo nila. Boy lagi gamit as evidence. So number 3,
Dallenberg
kidnapping trial.
in 1985. Dallenberg kidnapping case is considered by many to be the most significant case in the history of document examination. The 8 document examiners who testified for the test included Albert Osborne. They demonstrate that Bruno Richard Hoffman was the author of the ransom note. Copenhagen.
Nagkuha naman na sa teacher na sa Charles.
Charles E. Lindbergh Jr., the 28-month-old son of famous aviator Charles Lindbergh was kidnapped from the family home in New Jersey on the evening. On March 1, 1932, handwriting ransom note was found at the scene. The case became the murder when the child's body was discovered 2 months later.
Patay nga po nila.
After an investigation that lasted more than 2 years and highly publicized trial in 1955, Bruno Richard Hoffman, an illegal German immigrant, was found guilty in murder of the first degree and sentenced to death. The handwriting on the ransom note was compared to samples from Hoffman by several document examiners, who concluded that the note had been written up by Hoffman. Document examination was one of three items of evidence central to the case. The other were tracing of special bills used to pay the ransom of physical nature of a ladder from the scene, part of which could be traced to timber at Hoffman's home. So, balik, handwriting na, no?
Kung siya, katong kidnapping man gyapon siya no, sa
Kidnapping
Lindbergh
lang.
katong ang gikidnap is si kaning si Charles Lindbergh, a 20-month-old son. So kung siya, the handwriting, ang kuan niya is katong ransom note gihapon
Ransom
nga
note.
gihimo ni Hoffman. So pagkuan sa guilty naman si Hoffman. So the handwriting on the ransom note was compared. He-compared niya sa sample nga nagpahimo sila kang Hoffman na sab by several document examiners who concluded that the note had been written by Hoffman. So kato laging ransom note baski kibay with suspect pala ba si Hoffman ato nga time. So pagkakuan niya na guilty, na kuan dahil sa mga document examiners, na katong ransom note is si Hoffman yun ang isuwat ato. Through sa pagkuan nila ng forensic document examination, na identify nila ang handwriting ni Hoffman. Number 4. Still na yung malagamay lang.
Network Irving and the Howard Huggies. Biography in 1972. Howard Huggies was an American business magnate, investor, aviator,
Aerospace
engineer, filmmaker, and
Philanthropist.
He made big budget Hollywood films in the 1920s, set multiple world airspeed records as an aviator, and acquired and expanded Transworld Airlines, which later merged with American Airlines. He was remembered as an eccentric and one of the wealthiest people in the world. However, he did not make public appearance and preferred privacy and solitude.
So, esta pa na i-explain na diya. He was remembered as
So, parang pinakwartahan ini si Howard
Will
Howes.
Case, no?
Oo, pinakwartahan siya.
kaya nunangod ni mo ito pa rin business magnate, investor, aviator, aerospace engineer, filmmaker, and philanthropist. Grabe ka mo. Yan na, grabe na. Kita niya dyan. Wow.
1971, Clifford Irving convinced the publishers of McGraw-Hill that Howard Huggies
Hajis.
authorized him to write an autobiography. Irving forged letters from Huggies to support the claim that he was requesting Irving assistance in writing his autobiography. Irving even fabricated a contract between himself and Huggies to divide the money paid by McGraw-Hill for the book. Life magazine also purchased the rights to run its search of Howard Huggies to autobiography.
Close
Those associates of Huggies expressed doubts
doubts.
on the authenticity of the manuscript, while others vouched for its validity. Forensic document examiners other vouched for its validity. They became involved, specifically the firm of Osborne and Osborne brothers, and Paul and Russell Osborne compared samples of Huggies known writing with the Irving forgeries and declared that the letters were written by the
Same hand.
hand.
By January.
So ang kuha nila diri ay si Clifford Irving.
Clifford Irving.
Si Clifford Irving ang naga-forge sa autography, kana ganing autobiography, I mean, autobiography ni Clifford, ani
Ni
Howard
Howard.
Hodge. So mao na iyang mao ni kani nga case ang na-contribute dito sa kanang forensic document kibali nga case, mga cases. So mao lagi ito ka kanang forgery sa autobiography ni
About sa
Howard
life ni
Hodge.
Jan, no?
About sa kung ano.
Or basing
Bali,
giotro ni Jaw.
na kwarta mo gud siya sa kuan
Ayun,
kay
gusto
bali
niya-
da kaning Mac Grohill buras ni siya nag-authorize ni siya ba nga
So
kuan.
kibali.
Mag-publisher na.
Ako ba na?
Publisher ni
Si Jan
publisher
Bali.
ni si Mac Grohill.
Oo.
So once na kuan gibali ang gipagawas ni Clifford Irving nga gihatagan siya og authorization ni Howard nga siya ang magperma then magtunga sila sa
Kwarta.
profit na ilang makuha.
So, kisa may ilagi kan dili gi-forge nila dili nga tawo
Si Howard Hodge.
Si Howard.
Kibali ang nag-forge si Clifford Irving. Gi-forge ni siya ang
ang
kuan
life ni Ja, ang sa mga
ang
iyang
signature.
ang signature ha.
Oo. Autobiography ni kuan.
Autobiography nga.
Oh, writing ng autobiography. So mo to ang case ni Clifford.
Sige, next.
So, number 5.
Diyan pa ginaman. By January.
Oh.
Ba? Basta pero
By January 7, 1972,
Ano pa rin, Howard?
Hodges broke his 14 years of silence and exposed Clifford Irving.
Oh, na.
denounce.
Denounced Irving claims stating that never met Clifford
Clifford Irving. Never authorized
authorized
his
him to authorize his
cash any checks.
gave a cash checks from Mark Grohel, Clifford Irving, and his
Suspension
first station for the prison terms.
So ang buo gud na duel sa may
Si Kwan.
sa may nasa mo na about ano sila sa pag ikaw pa tanong unsa may na madumduman nimo sa Clifford and Irving Hodges biography in 1972 nasa yung mind kibali.
Basta, kung ano mo siya, basta kay ang si Clifford Irving ang nag-forge sa kuan ni Howard Hodge para makagain siya og profit gani nga kuan. Kasi siya man ang kibali, iya mang gipagawas diri nga gihatagan siya og authorization mas kiwaya. Tapos siya sa nagpurba sa mga checks, mga mas kiwaya nag-issue og check si Howard kay lagi kwartahan
Ay,
siya.
okay, kwartahan man sa
Oo.
ay kwartahan man nito si Howard. So si Clifford kibali siya nag-afford sa kung sa kanang mga kuan ni Hodges kibali kini bali mga
Para maka-
kibali check ni Hodges. Ija ko ba i-forge siya ba masabot ba nga
Para sa kuan
para
tuwa
ito
sila.
oo ano di ay kay gabli ka kwartahan si Hodges.
Kung makabati pa lang siya.
Ako pagtugay na si Hodges ang iyang biography gibali giatik unang giotro. Gibali tinuod ni siya nga kwartahan nga tapos si Clifford Irving.
Gi kuan ang ilang kuan.
Basketball
Next.
player mo si Irving.
Mormon Will in 1978.
The Mormon Will in 1978. Howard Holmes
O si kuan na ni, sumpay ni si John.
died in 1976, apparently without leaving a will. Numerous documents forthcoming with the true will of Howard Lewis surfaced, thus becoming the most valuable and challenged will-related case that document examiners
Kaya naging
have
kwartaan man.
testified.
So, nagapas sila sa will ni kuan kung asa to iyang mga kuan ipamana.
So the most notorious of this Christian will include the notorious
The Mormon will.
An handwriting will,
Unwritten.
the unhandwritten will
Discover.
discover at the headquarters of the Mormon Church, also called as the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints or the LDS Church
In Salt Lake City, Utah.
The will leave a huge sum
Huge.
to the Mormon Church, although Hodges only employed many LDS members and was not a member of the church himself.
Daghan ni kuan.
So amo kaya tingaya kadili magud siya kun member of the church himself. Tapos ang gita kuno will na kuno tagbilin diri sa kuan. Siya din sa LDS church. So the will had many strange discrepancies, most glaring of which was that it left 1/16 of the state to a Utah gas station operator named Melvin Domar. The purported will was 3-page long, allowing ample volume of materials for document examiners to study. Their unanimous conclusion was that this was not authentic. Domar claimed that he was awarded a huge
Huge.
part of the vast estate because he allegedly saved coins in a Nevada desert in 1976.
67.
In 1967, Domar's claims resulted in a series of court battles which has all ruled that the marble well was
Is
forgery.
forgery. So,
Urge si Jah.
Siguro na lang sila forge kaya tungkol lagi sa siguro gali sila pa ni si Howard George kay dili dili siya lang na member gid sa church.
Saka sa church ganito, tas na will na bilin dito.
Oo,
ah.
Dili dagay ni dagay ang pasabot is dagay ning gawas na mga will gani nga maski maglibog na sila kung asay kuan.
Tinood yun na siya.
Okay, puro sila kuan mga.
Kay Kortahan,
testing,
gud no, kay
mga
Pasuri ko,
Kortahan,
Kortahan,
gud
Ikaw
siya.
sa pertahan good. Tapos,
So, ato, mga
mga
will.
nagkapas sa mga
Lagi nang apas
Ang
ba?
will sa katong
Mga advantages niyo.
na question nila to kung forge ba kay lagi.
Pero
Dili
way,
ko-
pero
at
way
least
nakakuha
ang
sa will nila no. Pero way
wala
ano.
po. Diba dagay nagkuan-kuan gani pero wala lagi
Dagay
pwedeng
na
kuan.
lagi mag-try nga mag-forge sa isang will, di ba? Kana maging
Na-
yun no.
Conclusion, anonymous conclusion that is was not authentic. Kay ang state good dre Hodges, ano rin pabasa? Only
Hodges,
employed
Hodges.
many LDS members and was not a member of the church himself. So dili siya kung member siya.
So, yan na, di pa ka member.
Murag
Tapos
question na daan ba?
question na.
Na-question nila mga
Question na lang.
discrepancies, ang ilang mga kuan.
So, ang Hitler, basa ka. Sa may Hitler.
Kita ka tanan. So the Hitler Diaries in 1983. Sorry na. In 1983, the world was stunned with the discovery of the Hitler Diaries. Document examiners and historians declared mixed reports regarding its authenticity. However, forensic laboratory testing revealed that elements in the paper contained modern inks that was not manufactured until 1955.
56.
56. Adolf Hitler died in 1945. The Hitler Diaries were the most ambitious hoax of the century. Linguistics and historical experts initially vouched for the authenticity of the purported diaries. Document examiners supported this claim because the diaries matched the samples from which they compared Hitler's handwriting. The historians were proven wrong after extensive examination showed that the material contained errors and historical inaccuracies. However, the handwriting experts were correct in claiming that the diaries and the samples were written by the same person. This is because the sample themselves were forged. The forger was Konrad Kujau, a dealer in military memorabilia who had forged Hitler's handwriting for many years, even before fake diaries. The Hitler exemplars used by the examiners for comparison were actually forged by Kujau. This was a significant in the field person document examination because it highlighted the importance of selecting a competent examiner and ensuring adequate control of samples for comparison. So si Hitler sa una mura siya artista. Artista ni Hitler para sa katay sa ato karon artista siya mga burag ginaapas jud ang iyang story.
Yung mga
So
stories sa-
paggawas sa iyang diary, dagay na malit. So kung sa istorya ni ma'am, di ba, dagay nagkuha na to, nag-purchase sa mga diary na so mahal good kay diary na good na ito kay sikat lagi. So dagay nag-purchase ato. So ang kuan day ato is na-forge siya ito sa Johnny Conrad Kujau. So
Gisundog tanan to.
sundog tanan.
Tapos gibalik
Gikan
dyan,
gikan
nila.
sa diary, sinundog na ito tanan. Kibay na-identify nila tungod sa mga errors and historical inaccuracies.
Ang mga
Na-
history kay bali mga kuano.
So, ang na-contribute ni siya sa forensic document examination because nakuan ang nakahatag ni nga kanang importante jud ang pag-select of competent examiner. Kay di ba? Kung kay di ba kay ako na gud nila, kabali bro na-identify na gud lang nga sa kanang ilang nakuan kibali nga mao ang handwriting ni kuan. Sa katong diaries, di ba? Nga handwriting to ni Hitler. Pero di ay kuan na dito. So, tungod sa kay competent man ang examiner man competent examiner man ang nag-examine adto nga kuan, so na-identify nila nga forged siya gyapon ang handwriting, pero pareha ra gyapon ang handwriting ni Hitler, may gisundog jud ni siya ang handwriting ni Hitler. So nahimo nga importante jud ang pag-select of competent examiner and ensuring adequate control of samples for comparison. So compare jud nimo ang standard to question document.
So gikopya kay doon ano ang
Kopya
diary.
din kuan mo din forge jud ang agi ni kuan.
Baligya na dyan, no?
Baligya ni siya.
Tapos kibali simpre sige pang kibali nito no.
Di ba may taglawan lang na ang samples na di ba nila ang nahamok sa dalid siya?
Oo. Dapat
kailangan-
kung usa lang ang
oo.
standard nga gipangayo. Kasi sa court di ba kinay mga standard nga ilang gipangayo. Yan na jud dapat kay. Ug magpalapit na basing mosamot na kalibog ang mga question
Di na tuhan
documents.
na na papel. O di na.
So, So those covers the chapter 2, the history of forensic document examination. So basi namin mga questions or clarifications about sa
Dili ato rin,
history of
ato rin
forensic
recap.
document examination.
Ato dumduman. Pag Dreyfus affair sa ato dumduman ri ang major role is
Sa katong
yung Dreyfus affair. Dito to rin kalimtan.
oo.
Ibali ako say. Kasi ito rin sa
Tungod siya tagatag na kuan gali na murag bang letters gali sa kuan na tag-alleged siya na murag na nakuha na treason ba siya ba tungod sa ija murag may tagatag mo siya na kuan gud siya na communication French military secrets to German gali. Murag may tagatag siya na
Ito na, kuan na sa to kang battalion tong na sa to na
Anthropology.
anthropometry.
Anthropometry.
nga mo na diha.
Kaya sa katong Bobby Franks kidnap, katulaging si Bobby Franks kidnap si Jia tapos
Writing mo to?
katong typewriter, hinunod nga
Typewriter.
typewriter nga gikuan sa katong ransom note gani.
Pero
Ang-
patay na pero
So,
nang
ang evidence ni Jia to is ang typewriter tapos ang nagtagiya to is katong katong eskwela sa law school nga si Leopold ba ni?
Leopold
Si
and
Leopold ug si Leo.
Leopold at si Leo eh. So mato
Loeb.
nakuan man nga kanang identical man ang katong typewriter o ransom note, so na kuan nga iya ang katong kuan
Murag
ransom.
na yung pudles nga dili tanan mga lawyer gali kay mga kuan ba. Mga justiciable gali di ba justice grid sila ba?
Dodoan ni wan mo dodoan ng balakod diba.
Tapos kaning Lenberg kidnapping trial katong si Lenberg kidnap ransom note gyapon ni si Jahan was found the scene and began the murder shot. Handwriting na ransom note. Tapos si Clifford Irving moto si Howard Hodge ang victim balian ni Tija. Nga si Clifford Irving gi-claim niya nga gihatangan siya og authority pa maski wala tapos gi-forge siya ang iyang mga autobiography. Then sa Mormon will katong will ni Howard Hodge na question sa tungod kay kung asa ni Jackie kuan ang mga will. So daghan dayon ng sulpot na mga will kay di ba kwartaan na siya. Hitler diaries mo tong kuan man lagi sa Hitler bro sikat lagi siya sa una so daghay nag-purchase sa iya daghay paggawa sa iyang mga diaries nga kuan daghay nag-purchase. So ang ning kuan day is forged ra ito sa mga diaries. Kamoto sa ang mga history of cases, historical cases siya. So marto ato mga kuan diri dumduman na to. Sige lang kay dumduman lang nato ni ang mga history lang man sa mga chapter. Sa mga
Apit na 6.